Welcome to the award-winning Tough Girl podcast, now celebrating 10 years. I'm Sarah Williams, and every week I bring you stories from women in the world of adventure and physical challenge. Get inspired, stay motivated, and be part of a movement that's increasing the visibility of female role models, especially in relation to adventure and endurance. New episodes every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. Support the mission at patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast and dive deeper at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I'm Ioana. I am based in London. I work in post-production and video in my daily life, but I am an ultra runner.
I feel as though are you from New Zealand, or have I got that wrong? Where are you from?
No, so I basically grew up abroad in Europe, and I moved to the UK when I was 18 and just lived here my entire adult life. And I did have a period when I lived in New Zealand. I moved to Canada after that and then came back to the UK. It was in New Zealand I actually started trail running. I was snowboarding fairly seriously beforehand and moved to New Zealand, did a load of snowboarding, found the trails, started running, short runs at the start. And then I just kept building it up, kept going, see how far I could go. And that's where it all started.
Oh, amazing. So before we get to that then, were you sporty, outdoorsy, or was snow sports, was that your passion when you were younger?
Actually, when I was quite young, I wasn't very sporty at all. But when I was really young, I grew up with my grandparents in the countryside, basically. So I had endless fields and a big garden to run around in. I'd follow my granddad literally everywhere. So I'd basically be the child that's always climbing trees, chasing farm animals, covered in mud, that sort of thing, running everywhere. Really enjoyed that freedom. And I grew up in a city and wasn't really sporty at all until I basically started just doing the normal stuff you do, like swimming and ballet and all of that sort of thing that kids get put through, if you see what I mean. But apart from that, I wasn't really that sporty or anything. And then when I started snowboarding, I was early 20s. And that literally completely changed my life. I just got into performance and training and started really looking into actually improving my performance and getting better at it and getting good at the sport and what it takes and the discipline to do that. And I'd found this guy called Brian McKenzie who used to do a program called Power Speed Endurance. And he's an endurance athlete, and he was talking about things like how you maximize your performance through various things like breath work and breathing and correct posture and how you optimize every movement, that sort of thing. So I did his program, and that really, really helped my endurance and my performance in snowboarding. And that's when I started running just for training on a treadmill. And as I was always out on trails, on mountains, hiking, often you'd end up, I used to do backcountry snowboarding, so I'd basically end up getting the lift to the top of a slope and then hiking up to the top of the hill with my board. So you'd always be carrying some form of weight, like your board, whether you've got your water pack or backpack or whatever it is. And it takes ages. At the start, I remember thinking, hiking at the top of a mountain going oh, this is not as easy at 3,000 meters or whatever it was. And it was just hiking 50 meters on a hill round the corner from my house, very different to hiking 50 meters at 3,000 meters or over that. And that's when I ended up going I'm going to learn about this and get better at this, going to Brian's program. And then basically I've basically ever since trained with Third Space in London, and they have an altitude chamber, which is a complete game changer. For my snowboarding, it just helped me get better at that performance on top of mountains, essentially at altitude. And then I took that into running, and it kind of basically, with running, I was living in New Zealand snowboarding, and there's loads of trails everywhere. I would drive 10 minutes from my flat, from my house, and I'd be on a hill. And there's so many walking paths. And if you drive around the country, you can like wild camp and things. That's all free. And I just basically used to get in the car, pick a hill and like just run and go for as far as I could. And I remember being like scared about, running out of breath or running too far and having no way to get back and having that little mental block in my head. So then I was doing like Brian's thing that he was saying in his program, which was basically run at a speed that's comfortable, then push it. And then when you're out of breath, back it up a bit. And then you'll notice that if you do that every time, you'll end up running further and further. And your pace will naturally pick up because you're building the endurance and your body learns how to do it. And that kind of just broke my mental block. I just kept running around the coast and all of that sort of thing without worrying that I won't be able to get back or that sort of thing, because it was always out and backs because I was like on my own parking my car, that sort of thing.
Whereabouts in New Zealand? Were you North Island or South Island?
So I was in North Island, bottom of the North Island. I was actually in capital Wellington. I was at the bottom of the North Island in Wellington, and then I basically did things like I flew to Auckland and then drove down. So made my way down and just ended up doing like the whole North Island in terms of obviously seeing the sights, but also there's Mount Ruapehu. And there's a really good view. That's actually where Mordor was filmed in Lord of the Rings. So it was like really quite funny at the time. A few of us were like, let's just go snowboarding in Mordor. And
Amazing.
then I remember planning a trip where I'd basically left Wellington and hired a car and drove the whole of the South Island all the way down to like Queenstown and Wanaka and Cadrona and Treble Cone. And it was Cadrona and Treble Cone that I really enjoyed snowboarding in. And they have incredible like hills, and that's where a lot of the Olympic halfpipe athletes train, because they obviously have the season at the other side of the year compared to the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. So in the summer they'll go to Treble Cone and Cadrona and all that and use the half pipe in there for training. And it's just really good. It's just really good snowboarding.
So what sort of level were you at snowboarding? Were you professional at this point, or is this
No,
just
I wasn't.
passion?
I never went professional with it. I just kind of lived it and breathed it. Like I was literally at work going like, right, when's my next trip? I'd basically go up to, I used to work in Milton Keynes for a bit. I used to go up to the Excel Snow Centre, my lunch break, that sort of thing. And just basically just kept going. I've never competed with it, but I just went like, I'm just going to just seriously improve. I had a coach and stuff, and it was really nice because there's 5 of us on a trip, that sort of thing, and he'd take us out and take each one of us individually at our own level, but then we'd progress as a group. And it just was really, he was really good for, in general, as a coach, for breaking your mental blocks. He had some really good liners that I use on ultras to this day. Things like, don't think about it too much, you'll catch fear, and always end on a high. Things like he'd take us out on the hill and go like, right, we're doing jumps today. This is the technique. This is how you're doing. Let's go for it. And we'd be like, of course we are. Of course we're going to wang it off the side of this hill. And in your head, you can't really imagine how you're going to do it, but like you just trust and listen to what the man's telling you, how he's showing you, and you just go and try it. And I think a lot of stuff is about just going to do it.
Which was the first ultra that you decided to commit to? What was your journey of signing up for an ultra, committing to take on that challenge?
Well, this is a different story. So basically, I ended up doing all these runs in New Zealand, didn't really do anything with it. I'd never signed up to a race in my life before that. I was just doing it because I loved running. And when I moved back to the UK, fast forward many years, I basically, obviously everything closed down in lockdown, and I basically picked up running again in lockdown. and just around where I lived in London. And when stuff started opening, I've just started signing myself up for races, just for charities and stuff. I had loads of friends going through various things that were quite horrible in lockdown. I was just like, felt so helpless. I was like, there must be something I can do to help in some way, even if it's, you know, a drop in the ocean. So I've ended up signing up for various races as a charity, like raising money for various charities. Like ended up doing that Royal Parks half was the first race I ever did, basically. And then just kept doing like, oh, I've done a half marathon, I've done a trail half marathon, I've done this other thing. And then I ended up doing the London Marathon for Make Some Noise, which is Global Radio's charity, and well, Global Media, they own Outdoors as well, and they're a really, really lovely charity. So their thing is giving a voice to small charities. If you go on their website, there's a map of all the different charities around the country they support. So it's 100 small charities they pick every year, and those charities make a huge difference in their local communities. But because they're small charities, they haven't got the overheads to do big fundraisers and so on. So Make Some Noise raise a big amount of money for these charities every year. So there's a Make Some Noise Day, and where you can do various things, and there's a really big effort to raise money for them. And then they just split the money across all the different charities, which I think is really lovely, because often it's the local people in your local community that give you the most amount of help. Like when you're in that situation where no one wants to be in a situation when they need any form of help, but they support everything from, it's mainly focused on young people and families, which is really lovely, especially as a young person, you're still learning how to do life, and supporting small charities that really care and have the time to one-to-one with like people struggling, then I think it makes such a difference. So from doing the London Marathon, I basically went like, right, what can I do next? And I was basically I work in podcasts, so I was working with Spencer Matthews, and he was training for the Beyond the Ultimat Jungle Ultra when we were starting his podcast, and we just got chatting, and I was like, I'd love to do something like that someday. And then we just looked at each other and realized, hang on, we're the exact same age. As a human, I'm only getting older, so I may as well just sign up. And he just looked at me and went like, dude, sign up now. So I literally just signed up, thought about it later, and went like, right, I've signed up. I'll train for this 7 months. Let's go. So then I basically went from running the London Marathon as my longest distance to signing up for 230k in the jungle.
Oh, I love that. And it's nice to be surrounded by people who encourage you, support you, and are like, yeah, like do it. Like,
This is it. I think
absolutely.
that was important. I think that the fact that Spencer was like, of course do it. Why wouldn't you do it? As opposed to someone going like, oh, you can't do that. Do you see what I mean? In fact,
Yeah.
you've just reminded me ages ago when I was before I even ever signed up for a race, I was running loads. Like I used to live in Hampshire for a bit, and there's loads of like, you've got the South Downs. I was going out for long runs, and it was like long runs and longer runs and longer runs. And I said to someone, I really want to do a 30-miler. And they literally just said, you can't do that. And I remember being really annoyed at that and going like, no, I can do that.
It's like deflating you. Like, instead of like, just because they're probably thinking, well, I could never do that. If there's no way that I can do that, you definitely can't do that. And it's like putting their fears and insecurities on you. And even if that was just like a tiny little flame, it's like trying to extinguish you and that dream. And I think sometimes, and then people can have almost two reactions to that. It can either make them crumple, and so it's like, oh, actually, yeah, their opinion is right. That's something that I can't possibly do. Or if you're the type of person who's like, well, actually, I'll show you just what's me.
Absolutely. I think you've nailed it there. What that made me do was because they didn't say, they said, oh, you can't do that. That's like, you can't do that. And then they said, they basically did that thing where they laugh at you as well. So it was like, my reaction was, oh no, I'll prove you wrong. Like, I love proving people wrong when they say something's not possible.
Totally agree. But I also just think not everyone's like that. And I know there'll be so many women out there who'll have said, oh, well, maybe
You're
I
so
should.
right. You're
Yeah.
so right.
And they did, and they do. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that they haven't got that, not the mentality, but maybe the courage or the I don't know what the word is, but to be like, actually, no, I'll show you. But you've made this commitment now. You know, you've got 7 months to train. Your longest distance that you've run is London Marathon, 26.2. You're going after a 230 kilometer. No, is this the jungle race, the Beyond the Ultimate Jungle
Yeah,
Ultra?
it was. So, in retrospect, I probably should have run more than 26.2 miles beforehand, in retrospect. But, we move, we live and learn. And the thing is, like, in my head, there's no doubt that I could do it. But I literally wasn't thinking, I never for a second thought that I can't do it, but I just had no idea what I was doing. Like, one of my friends who's a great ultra runner and actually a really great supporter of women, like, he coaches a group of women called the Early Birds. His name is Julian Ayres, and he basically runs every morning, and then his wife runs with him, and a group of their friends who are all women all run together. And then that kind of habit, I think, turned into, like, they've called themselves the Early Birds, and Julian coaches them, and they've just done an ultra together this year, like 6 of them, I think. I think they've done the She Ultra, and they just absolutely nailed it and did that thing where they crossed the line holding hands.
Oh,
It was so wholesome and so lovely. And Julian is a phenomenal ultra runner, and he has this saying of, you've got to decide, is it a race or is it an event? And that stayed with me when he said that. And for me, the jungle was definitely an event. I had no idea what I was doing. I learned 100% more than I knew on that race. And I was just getting grounded. So it was an event. I wasn't putting pressure on myself to, you know, compete or anything like that. I wasn't even dreaming about it. I was just like, let's see how this goes. And I had Spencer's account of it, which was my only reference to running an ultra in the jungle at the time. And it was one of those things where I was like, right, well, I'm going to train for it. I have no doubt I can train for it. And I had my coach from the London Marathon, who's like awesome. Emma, her name is, Emma Kirk. And she's just like, yeah, of course you're going to do this. Like, having that backing from both women and men who go, yes, of course you can do this, I think is so important. It just removes so many mental blocks where you think, I can. If someone else believes in me, I can do it.
so tell us more about your training then. What did that look like?
It's one of those things, right, where before I run the London Marathon, I'd never run a marathon. I know this sounds really obvious, but it was my first ever marathon. And I was like, right, I've always been of that kind of mentality. I think I got this from my mum and dad, but like, it's, don't reinvent the wheel, like, ask the expert and then use your strengths. Don't, like, worry about your, like, chinks in the armor. Use your strengths. And I was like, great, fantastic. Well, I don't know what I'm doing training, so I'm just going to find myself a good coach. So because I was already training at First Pace in London, I was doing this Speed Fiends class, which is like a sprints class on the treadmill. I was really loving it. It was really helping me with my snowboarding and, like, the, you know, tackling the energy system when you're going fast and sharp. And Emma was teaching one of these classes, and at the time, I've never met her, but at the time, my sprint coach, Sophie, she introduced me to Emma and said, I think she's the best marathon trainer, and she's a woman, and she's got, like, her coaching group's called To the Finish Line, and she's really into coaching women as women, as in actually taking account of our physiology, of what we've got, like, to worry about that men don't worry about, that sort of thing, in the sense that she was the first ever coach that ever spoke to me about, periods and like our luteal phase, our like, how our different phases work, and how, sometimes you'll rock up to the gym and you can lift a certain weight easy, next week struggling to lift it. It's like that thing of going, you've got to understand what you're working with and your hormones and all of those things. And I think that made such a difference to me, because even mentally, in the sense of being kind to yourself and going like, there's nothing wrong here, I'm just going through this phase and I'm adapting my training to that. And I was like, to me, that was a big surprise that someone would care as much to talk about that. So she coached me for the London Marathon, and I just like went from never running a marathon to having a lovely time running a marathon. And then Emma continued to coach me for the jungle and my next ultra, which was a desert ultra. And then after that, after the desert in November, I changed my coach and basically just kind of went like, my current coach is a guy called Adam Kimball, who's an ultra runner, and he's a pro ultra runner. And it's a different beast, because marathon runners can be fast and we're picnicking on the trails, aren't we? And it's endurance, it's making the distance, it's things that I hadn't thought about. I was like, I need someone who can teach me those things. And that's completely changed my training and my relationship to running. I've never loved running more than since I've been training with Adam. And it's good, like, someone's passion for running extreme endurance, like, and long distances is so good and so important. And basically, I completely changed my training after the desert, and that just made everything come together. I say completely. Chris King, who runs Beyond the Ultimat, is a good friend, and he's a phenomenal athlete. He's going for a fastest known time on the South Coast Path, training for that at the moment. But like, he is one of these people who has so much knowledge, and he knows resilience. And one thing that really stuck with me is he has this thing where he says, one of his values for Beyond the Ultimat is getting everyone across the line. He actually cares about the runners, and he actually goes and like almost coaches them through it when they're having a hard time on one of these multi-stage ultras. And he said this thing of never quit at the end of the day. When you're tired, when you're in pain, quit in the morning. So I remember him saying to someone who came to quit at the end of the day on a race, he said to them, "You're not quitting with me tonight, you're quitting with me tomorrow at checkpoint 1. And that made him start the race the next day. And when he got to checkpoint 1, Chris was waiting for him, going like, "What are you doing? Are you quitting? Where are you going?" And he was like, "I'm going." So he finished the race. And I think like knowing people like that is so important. And he introduced me to my coach, Adam. And Chris said to me, like, you were doing the right amount of volume, you were just doing the wrong type of volume. That like made a lot of sense for me, because what I changed with Adam completely changed everything for me. I love running so much more. I'm getting the results. It's just one of those things that you don't learn until you put yourself through it.
So to just clarify that, so you were doing the wrong volume of training. So how did it change? Like,
So I was doing the right volume of training. So I was training a lot. I was training like 6 days a week. I train 6 days a week now, but the type of training I was doing wasn't the right type of training for me. So I was doing loads of, basically it's quite simple, like with beforehand, I was doing loads of, I was doing runs, I was doing like long runs at weekends, but I was doing a lot of, obviously I was doing strength and conditioning, which is really important to prevent injuries, but I was also doing a lot of like strength work and things that were not actually helping me, that was like, were almost too much, where I needed to just be running more. So I've basically changed the type of volume I was doing rather than the amount. So I now go on a lot more runs, and obviously strength and conditioning is key, but I don't spend hours and hours on like lifting weights.
So sorry, let me just clarify. So the type of volume that you were doing, so what you're still covering the same distances, but you're doing it in a different way?
No, I'm covering a lot more distance now. So I was basically probably averaging at like maybe say 50K a week max beforehand. And now I'm just, yeah, that would be a max. So I was probably doing 30 to 50K a week and doing loads of sessions where I was just doing weight sessions and things like that. And it's like, I didn't need the amount of weight sessions. And so like maybe, I don't know, 3 days a week I'd be doing weights, and then 2 days I'd be doing runs. And it's like, I was averaging at the 30 to 50K a week, that sort of thing. 50 was my top. And it just wasn't enough for the distances I was trying to do in races. So now I'll still have the strength and conditioning, but I'm not spending hours and hours doing like, I don't know, farmers carries or whatever. I'm basically spending a lot more time just running. So now my average is like 70, 80, 90K weeks, often going over 100, that sort of thing. So I'm doing more running, less other stuff like things you do for high rocks, basically.
Yeah.
If that
Okay.
makes sense.
No, it doesn't. And thank you for clarifying. I think that's really interesting, because I think it's always difficult to get the balance right between, well, for me, I think it's three things. It's the endurance type of training, then it's the strength and conditioning, and then the third one for me is around the mobility, flexibility piece. So like sort of
Yes,
yoga,
that's a good
stretching.
point. That's a good point. So, like, I used to do zero flexibility. I used to do a lot of strength. Literally, the strength does help, but it wasn't helping what I was doing. It wasn't helping endurance running. Then obviously I was going for these runs, but like I wasn't going for enough runs for my body to learn, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. So like because I was getting down on myself and I was just like, I just wasn't doing enough running volume, and I just wasn't doing enough volume. And Chris looked at me and just said, you were doing volume, you were just doing the wrong type of volume. I was like, that's right, I just needed to run more.
Yeah. So let's talk about the specific races then. So
Yes.
how was the Jungle Ultra? Take us to that race, that experience, what it was like for you being out there, especially in a jungle, in the heat, in the humidity, out there for, days on end. It's a multi-stage ultra race. Talk us through that, the highs and the lows and the magical moments.
It was amazing, but the learning curve was pretty much vertical. I literally had no idea what I was doing beforehand. I learned 100% more than I knew about ultras on that race and leading up to that race in those 7 months training. Like, I hadn't realized how important the admin is and how big a part, like bigger part the admin plays on a multi-stage race where you're carrying everything you need for the week, right? And packing the pack and, working out your nutrition and your fuel. And I've tested all of that, of course, but like you learn so much by being in those environments and doing the actual races, because I remember testing a dehydrated meal before going out there, just sat in my living room, absolutely fine. It's very different when you're day 5 of a race, trying to eat some kind of dehydrated porridge at 5 o'clock in the morning. And your body does this thing where it's like, I never knew palate fatigue was a thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's very different what your body does under stress. And obviously you don't learn till you do it, which is amazing. But the race itself was incredible. It's like so well organized, and the place is insane. Like, it's like a protected national park where there's maybe like the last species of a bat or something, and the Peruvian team they hire literally hack the trails through the jungle because it grows so quickly. So every year they have to rehack the trails, and it's just next level. The coverage is so thick that, you could be close to someone, but you wouldn't see them because of all the windiness of the whole place and everything. You're on your own for most of it because every one of us has different, like, pace speeds, and depending on terrain, some of us are stronger at one thing and less strong at another. You know how it goes. So it's one of those things where I was just out there, like, on my own, like, it's interesting what your brain comes out with when you're out there. And not a second did I feel I wasn't going to finish this, right? And it's like, before I went, part of me was like, I'm absolutely definitely going to, like, stop and have a cry at one point. That's definitely going to happen. And that just never happened. Like, I just kind of went like, I'm just going to be my own hero here. Because at points, like, it's obviously you carry a tracker, but they tell you these trackers could be 7K out at times just because of the coverage of the jungle. It's so thick, they can't see the sky. And if there's an emergency button on it, but obviously if you press it, you're out of the race, and it's an extraction mission of several hours until, it takes 20 minutes for you to send a message, 20 minutes for them to get back to you, 20 minutes to reply. By the time they move to come and find you, it's an hour, that sort of thing. It's like, unless it's an emergency, do not press that button, basically. So often you're on your own, you're going like, it's actually easier for me to, I remember thinking it's actually easier for me to walk myself to the next checkpoint than to ask for help, because
Yeah.
if I ask for help, I have to sit down for an hour at least until they come and get me. It's like, then it gets you thinking like, well, do I need help? No, not really. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of gave me that I can absolutely do this. Like, even if I walk it, as long as you keep moving. I just actually didn't really end up walking much of it. Obviously, like, it's a running joke that Chris calls the hills undulating, when in fact they are absolutely vertical. And now we have this saying of it's Chris King undulating then. And it's one of those things where it's not fast when you're trying to hike a hill at altitude, humidity, and in the heat. You're there for ages. But, at the time, I was just like not really bothered about the time, about racing. I was just getting grounded. So it's like a really good way to learn about endurance racing.
Absolutely. And you've taken that knowledge and, oh my God, I'm going to be so cringy with it, and run with it,
Yeah.
because you are winning races now, like the
Yeah.
Arctic race. And did you also win,
The Highland Ultra.
yes, the Highland Ultra? Amazing. I mean, let's talk about the Arctic race coming in first place, and that's like, is that 200 kilometers?
230 as well, yeah.
Another 230 kilometers in the Arctic, very different from the jungle. A little bit colder, not covered by the jungle out in the
Literally, in
vast
the jungle,
open.
you stop and things crawl up you. In the Arctic, there's nothing lives. The race briefing was like, yeah, there's polar bears, but don't worry, they're asleep.
Don't stress it. Just run faster than them. When things start coming together for you in that race, like especially like the Arctic race, you mentioned that you've been on this like massive learning curve. You just 100% more knowledgeable. You're obviously getting a lot of support. You're in that ultra running community. You've got a brilliant set of coaches around you, or that you've worked with, imparting their knowledge. When you went out for the Arctic race, are you competitive? Because obviously you mentioned before it being a race or an event. Are you going out now to race, to
I'm
win?
absolutely going out now to race, yeah, definitely. So I'd done the jungle and learned so much about it. And then immediately afterwards, like, I remember it was the day after we finished the race. We were sat down around the table. I was chatting to Chris, who's the race director for Beyond the Ultimate for most of the races. And Chris just went like, you did really well in that race. Because in the jungle last year, I was coming in third, second, third, like in women's, without even really trying for the first three stages. And then what happened was this is an aside I completely forgot to mention. So what happened was I basically got my period mid-jungle, and I didn't. I basically was taking the mini pill to stop it because I used to struggle really badly with periods. It was just too painful. I'd been in hospital with morphine before, that sort of thing. Basically, I hadn't had a period in 3 years. And mid-jungle, this happens. I'm like, okay, this is great. Of course, all the other things that happen with it kicked off, like cramping and all this. And the medics, the global expedition medics who do these races or Beyond the Ultimate, are utterly incredible. I remember there's one medic called Fraser who was my absolute hero on that race. I literally just went up to him and went like, I need sanitary products, I need painkillers, I'm in a lot of pain. And he was like, catch me up. And I was like, well, I've been in hospital with morphine before. And he was just like, here's 60 mil of codeine. So for the last couple of days, I was running around the jungle, like, quite happily on this codeine and feeling really quite grateful about it. But like, it was one of those things where, because I think I obviously wasn't used to doing that sort of distance coming from a marathon, but also like I was in so much pain with cramps and stuff. I remember on the last 2 days, I made the cutoff points for the long course with plenty of time, but I was just like, I just want to enjoy this race. I'm in a lot of pain. I just want to enjoy it. So I basically went and short coursed it. So I finished the race, but I did a short course. And on the last day, there's a massive hill right at the end. And like the medic who was at the checkpoint was like, you can do this. You're great. She's an incredible woman. And I was just like, thank you for believing in me. This is an educated choice. I'm going to take the short course because that hill is going to take me several hours. I'm already on maximum painkillers. I'm already in a lot of pain. I actually just want to enjoy running this in. So I did the last 10K, and there was a dog at that checkpoint that ran with me all the way to the finish line. And for me, that was the right decision at the time. For me, that was an event. And it was just one of those things of going, I've never had that happen to me before. Obviously, I've never had to deal with a period in the jungle, but it was one of those things where you learn so much about what your body does out of nowhere and how you deal with it. And then straight after the day after we finished, Chris said to me, you did really well on that race. I think you should do the whole series. I was like, do you know what? Thank you for believing in me. I'm going to do the whole series. And I then did the Beyond the Ultimate Desert in November, where it was going really, really well. I was absolutely loving it. By that point, I trained even harder because I never stopped training from the jungle. So this was, I don't know, jungle was in June and the desert was in November. So it was a few months apart. So I just kind of continued training. And I was already wanting to race in the desert. I was like, well, I was there to race it. I went there to race it. And I was loving it. I was doing really, really well. I was really enjoying the progress I'd made. I'd go out right at the start and absolutely loved it. And then had on the last stage, it's like 92K. It starts really early in the morning before the sun comes up and before the heat comes up. And like, I just stuck with the plan. The plan was to go hard in the dark, slow down and chill when the heat comes up, all of those things. And at this stage, this was technically my second ultra, but I was already there to compete. Like, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I just basically realized at age 35 that I really enjoy running ultras and I am really good at it. So I was like, well, if naturally this is something that works for me, I can train to be really good at this. I want to be really good at this, and this is what I want to do now. So basically, if I'm so into it, if I could make it a full-time job, that's the dream, right? But like, I was there to race the desert. Last stage, 50K, absolutely fantastic 50K. And then my blood pressure dropped. I literally couldn't go back. I knew I couldn't go back. I literally died on the checkpoint floor for like an hour with an incredible medic trying to get me back together. And she did, like, Christy, her name is, and she was part of the Global Expedition Medics. She was incredible. She was just like, right, I see you, I hear you, we're not ending your race here, you're going to do this. So then I ran another 20K, got to the next checkpoint feeling great, kept running basically, and I just ended it with a short course again. It was so frustrating because I was like, something's just not clicking for me. Like, when I just keep ending up, like, something just happens. I'm just like, okay, cool. So I then changed my coach, changed my training, and it all came together for the ice. I was just like, basically, I think that learning and those changes I made in my training between the desert and the ice just made it all come together. So I went into the ice with such a strong mindset. Like, I think for me, the ice was the least intimidating because of being a snowboarder. I knew what to expect with snow, with ice. In fact, whilst I was running around it, a lot of it felt like I was on a board because you learn to you're familiar with the type of snow ahead of you, and you're always looking at the type of snow, and you know that's packed snow, that's icy, that's deep snow, and this you get to recognize the texture of it. And it's just one of those things where you're kind of, okay, well, if I step up that way, I'll sink in the snow. And like, if I don't, then it'll be better to go this way, that sort of thing. And it just didn't really intimidate me. There's a mountain you have to summit on stage 2, I think. And it's Mount Cabla, and there's basically 3 big peaks. And hiking up them, I was like, it feels like me hiking up the hill with my board, but I've got backpack instead, like doing the backcountry. So it's just one of those things where I just was really calm about it, I think.
So in 2025, your challenge is to race all of the Beyond the Ultra, do the full series in 1 year.
Yes.
Are you being sponsored for that, or are you self-funding it?
I'm self-funding all of it. So there's a really awesome guy, Harry Edmonds. He is probably the youngest person to complete the series. Only 6 people now have completed the series. So Beyond the Ultimate do a global race series. That's the 4 hardest ultras in the world in extreme environments. So it's jungle, desert, ice, and mountain. And then they do 2 other races, which are the Highland and Four Rangers, which is a desert in Kenya. And basically, when we say the series, is the 4 ones, like the jungle, desert, mountain, and ice. And Harry basically was in the jungle with me, and he was the youngest ever person to do a Beyond the Ultimate race. I think he was like 23 or 24 at the time. I remember thinking, oh, I wish I got into this at your age. But most people don't, do they? Most of us get into it at like I did at 35. And Harry has done it in a year. Like, he's completed the series. He's just gone jungle, mountain, desert, ice, done. So we were in the desert, jungle, and ice together. And the only one I've not done is the mountain. Basically, he's done it in a year, but across 2 years, as it were. So what I'm doing here is big tangent there. So the plan is to do the whole global race years in 1 calendar year in 2025. So all 4 of them. But then I'm also doing the other 2 races, like the Highland and Rangers. So I'm basically doing all 6 in 1 calendar year, which hasn't been done before. My friend Kev is also doing the same. And yeah, we're just that's the plan.
I've got to ask you, how much is that going to cost?
Absolutely insane. So basically, that's the thing. I'm just a normal person. I work a full-time job, but right now I'm just like so dedicated to this. I've basically gone, this means something to me. So I basically sold the flat ages ago and I hadn't bought anything else. So the money was just sat there. So I'm just like, using that to do the race series, essentially. And I'm self-funding everything. There's the cost of the travel, there's the cost of the races. You do get a bit of a discount if you do the full series, but obviously, like, when you're doing the whole thing in a calendar year is monumental. And then the cost of the kit is like monumental in itself, like the specialist stuff. Like, if you think about it, for the Arctic, you think it's like small things, but it all adds up. Like, you need snowshoes, you need racing shoes that are good for -40 Celsius, because I don't fancy losing a toe in to frostbite, that sort of vibe. And each race has its own specialist kit, essentially. So in the jungle, you're sleeping in a hammock, and you know all of these things. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, I must have put about 30K into it so far. And that sounds mental, but it's something that matters to me. And I'm at a point where I say 11 months, it's exactly a year ago when I did this race in the jungle. I thought that was going to be my one and only ultra, and it actually gave me so much. I realized actually it took me back to being a child whilst I was there, like remembering running in all the fields and stuff. I just felt most like myself I ever did. And I wasn't even trying. I was coming in like second, third woman in the first three stages. And I just knew this is what I'm meant to do. I know that sounds a bit woo-woo, but I'm like, actually, I'd like to quit my job to do this full time at some point.
Do you know? And do you not go for it?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Like, life's too short. And the way I thought about it is, when I sold that flat, I didn't rush to buy a new flat. That money is been sat in an account, and you can always make more money. A full-time job will always be there, but this means something. I think, to be fair, like, to credit this, like, through Beyond the Ultimate, I met British athlete John Shield, who's the first person to ever win every single one of the Global Race Series races outright. So we did the desert together. He won the desert, completed the series, was the fifth person to ever complete the series. And he won every single one of them outright. And we met way back when through Beyond the Ultimate, and he basically sold me a backpack. I had no idea who he was. And we immediately clicked. And one of the first things he said to me is like, you've got the same mindset as I have. You don't break. Having someone to have the same passion for racing, to understand things, to learn from, is monumental. And to just bounce ideas off, or just remember, and just to believe in you as well. But like, he is a phenomenal coach, probably one of the best ultra coaches I know. And before the jungle last year, I had like one of those pre-race panics where I was like, John, what the fuck am I doing? What right have I got to be doing this? And he's like, you've got every right to be doing this. And remember, it's just one step at a time, one foot after the other, just keep moving. And that was one of the best things that anyone ever said to me in terms of ultra running. And, in that jungle at that time, whatever came at me, I was like, it's just one step at a time. I just had John in my head. I think, like, having someone who has that same mission is monumental, basically, just for understanding and for community and meeting everyone else in the community. And my current coach, Adam, is the race director for the desert. And he's another person who is a pro ultra runner. It's just, he just runs and coaches, and having that thing of, this is possible, to do this as a thing, as a career, you know, it's just like one of those things where people do it. So it's like the 4-minute mile, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shows it's a possibility. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to mess about. I think having John and Adam around is amazing, because then I'm just like, well, they're doing it, so why am I not?
Yeah. Absolutely, totally agree. And you're working with Dr. Freya Bain, is it, at London South Bank
Yes.
University? Would you like to share more about the work that you're doing with her?
I would love to. So Dr. Bain is amazing. So it's funny how small the community is. So my other friend Chris Taylor, he is an incredible athlete, so fast and coach and just does ultras, both does ultras and runs fast, like really fast. Chris basically is completely by coincidence. Spencer, Spencer Matthews, who got me to sign up for the jungle, he then went on to do a challenge that was 30 marathons in 30 days in the desert. And my friend Chris ended up doing him and his partner Hannah ended up doing all the logistics for that. So it was a Guinness World Record. They just made it happen in terms of like planning, logistics, training, all of it. So Chris introduced me to Dr. Bain, who also did Spencer's heat acclimation for the desert. So I did 15 sessions of heat acclimation before the Namibian desert I did on Beyond the Ultimat. And basically, that was one of the best things I'd done to prepare for that desert, because at the time I didn't have the running volume, but the heat training was elite. And basically, you run in a heat chamber for an hour or 2 hours at a time at 40 degrees Celsius, and it causes the adaptation to heat. Obviously, I'm going really dumb here. Dr. Bain will have the science. But like, it fascinated me that, your body is capable of adjusting like that. I remember doing this at the same time as John, who was also doing the desert race. And John just said to me, "Oh yeah, our bodies adapt to heat quite quickly." I remember being surprised by that, going like, really? I thought that would be really hard. And then I started working with Dr. Bain, and within 3 sessions, she said to me on session 3, "I'm really excited about next week, because next week on session 4, that's when we'll see the adaptations kick in." I was like, really? That quickly? And then looking at the science and the graphs, I was like really into it. So I just went back to her and said, "Look, I'm doing the full series. It's the 4 hardest ultras in the world in extreme environments. So I'm going to need to adapt to all this. Are you in? Shall we do it?" And she was like, "Yes, let's go. Let's do some research on it." So in a way, I not to blow my own trumpet here, because it's not about that at all, but like, there's very little research on women athletes, which I'm really happy to be able to contribute towards. And I'm really happy that my acclimation sessions aren't just something I pay for and do and that's it. They're going towards academic research on physiological adaptations to extremes. And to them, I'm an ideal candidate in the sense that I'll be the constant athlete across all the different extreme environments. So before the ice, which was the first race of the year in February, before the Arctic, we did a load of cold exposure. So I was in the lab in ice baths for various amounts of time. So like, I think we started with 15 minutes and upped it to 20, and every session we dropped the temperature a bit. But this is all in a lab, very controlled. The scientist is there with you, measuring your core temperature every few minutes, measuring everything. So you're always safe. Don't do this on your own, basically. And I was so surprised how much that helped in the Arctic in terms of like acclimation and being used to the cold and how your body reacts to the cold. And then for the jungle, we've been doing like altitude, humidity and heat. So I've been running in the heat chamber by about 36 Celsius with 50% humidity and various amounts of altitude. So basically the jungle starts at about 3,200 meters and then you go down. So after stage 1, you're not really at high altitude. It's still 2,000 odd meters, but like, it's not ridiculous. And humidity is 70 to 100%, but like, in the lab, they could only do up to 50%. But because I was already using an altitude chamber, I was quite used to 3,000 meters. So we've upped it. So yesterday I did my last session and we were up to 3,962 meters, like running comfortably. It's just one of those things where that's giving them the chance to study adaptations to altitude, humidity, heat altogether. And then my next race is going to be the mountain, which is over 4,000 meters altitude. That's got a 2-day trek before you even start the race. So for that, we're going to go for high altitude acclimation. And then we're back into 2 deserts. So that's back to heat acclimation. So they're then able to study one athlete across one calendar year, adapting to all these extreme environments and make a study out of it, basically.
No, but that's amazing because we do need more scientific studies and research done, especially into female athletes. So I think this is absolutely awesome.
Fantastic. And what I love as well is things like it teaches me a lot about myself, my own body, how things work, things I never knew about. Like this time round with the heat, altitude, and humidity, we're stopping every 10 minutes and doing lactate testing and measuring everything. So that's really interesting. Like I'm learning a lot from it, but it's also really rewarding because you've got students in the lab, you've got people undergrads, you've got people doing their masters, you've got people doing their PhDs coming in and being on those sessions or learning to lead those sessions, learning to, do the actual science. And basically I'm a glorified guinea pig, but I'm loving that. Do you know, it's really awesome to see. Currently my whole team in the lab are women. And it's good to see women in science doing stuff. And it's good to see more and more female presence in sport. Not that it wasn't there already, but it's good to shout about it.
I agree. I agree. It's just amazing. I love the fact there's an all-female team as well. And just, yeah, exactly. The scientists, the researchers, other women seeing you follow your dreams and passions. Like this is how change happens. And Ioana, where are you most active on social media? How can people follow along with your journey?
I am on Instagram and it's Ioana Barbu, which is my name, but it's spelled like the French way, as in it's not spelled the French way. It's basically IOANABARBOUX instead of the U at the end.
I'll put the links to your Instagram so that people can follow along. But Ioana, I would love for you to have the final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women, actually. Do you know what? If you want to pursue their dreams and passions, if you want to find what brings them joy, apart from just do it, what advice would you like to share?
Oh, just do it. It's the best one.
I know, but
I know. Like,
I know your mindset, so I do understand it is a case of just do it. But for so many women, actually taking that first step can be so difficult.
Like I would say, find people who are like-minded. Don't be afraid to join a community. Like if you're joining, I've got friends who who have never run and watch me do this. Like at work, for example, like one of my friends at work, she isn't a runner. She hasn't really been running. She's just watched me do this and gone, she's gone into fitness and into going to the gym and having a personal trainer. But then she was watching me and said, I want to start running and give it a go. And I've never done it, so I'm going to do Coach to 5K. I'm like, that's phenomenal because back to what John said, it's one step at a time. So it's like, I think it's one of those things of just not being afraid to try it. And you don't have to start big. You can start small. It's like if you run, half an hour today, then half an hour tomorrow. And one of the things that Chris King, who runs Beyond the Ultimate, says is the importance of easy runs. That's one of the most important things you can do because you're building a base, right? So it's like, don't make it terrifying. Start with something you're comfortable with and just push it a little more and then push it a little more tomorrow and see where it takes you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Find a community, start small, keep pushing it and see where it takes you. Ioana, honestly, best of luck with all of your races this year. Excited to follow along with your journey, and we'll definitely be catching up with you on Tough Girl Podcast Extra to see how you've gotten on with this incredible challenge. And thank you for sharing your story on the Tough Girl Podcast.
You're amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Hey, tribe, how you all doing? I hope you're enjoying all of the incredible episodes, which are dropping today on the 4th of August, 2025, which is the 10th year anniversary of the Tough Girl Podcast. The Tough Girl Podcast has been going for 10 years. OMG. And we have got 4 episodes going live today. One at 7 a.m, 11 a.m, 3 p.m, and my solo reflections episode going live at 7 p.m. today. So hopefully you have subscribed and all of these will be automatically downloaded to your listening device. Big shout out to all of the phenomenal runners out there, especially if you are running at the moment, if you are training for a race, you're out listening to the Tough Girl Podcast, you are killing it. So very well done. Very, very proud of you. Remember to breathe, remember to smile, remember to take a selfie, remember to just, have fun. And also tag me in your posts at Tough Girl Challenges on Instagram, because I will then reshare it. I'm currently starting a new adventure. I am going to be out on the GR10, which is walking the full length of the Pyrenees from the Atlantic Ocean all the way over to the Mediterranean Ocean. I will be documenting and sharing on social media, so please do come and follow along. Thank you so much for all your incredible support, for helping the Tough Girl Podcast reach 800 episodes. If you've been listening for a long time now, thank you so much. I'd love it if you could just tell one friend about the Tough Girl Podcast, because this is how we spread the word. This is how we increase the amount of female role models in the media. It's by you listening and sharing. Big thank you to all the incredible patrons and supporters for supporting the work that I do. You can sign up at Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. You can sign up as a monthly patron or an annual patron. Or if you just wanted to make a one-off donation, do you know what, Sarah? I've been listening for you 10 years. I'm going to send you £10. You can also do that via PayPal. All of the links are on the toughgirlchallenges.com website, so please do go and check it out. All that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all. Give it 110%. Get after it. Go for it. Believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care. Lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.